the Parliament, where Sidney Casey-Hayford, who is a leading member of Occupy Ghana, is being noted for potential sanctions for contempt of Parliament. Ras Mubarak, a member of Parliament, stood in the House and raised the issue about Sidney Casey-Hayford. Now, he has since, issued an apology in the media. Some MPs disagree. They say that's not enough. He should still be hauled before the House. Others say it's okay since he has apologized. Let bygones be bygones. But where do you stand on this, George?
Well, where I stand is very simple. I think that Parliament is an important institution of state, and that as much as possible, I share the view that indeed citizens have a right to speak about Parliament. They have a right to even criticize Parliament, critique the work that Parliament does, because after all, they sent us there. But then, in so doing, we should also remember that it's a sacred institution, and the way we do the criticism is important. So, Sidney, I've read his apology. Not strong enough, if you ask me, but it's an apology.
Hold
anyway.
it. Let's hear the apology that he rendered, and then I'll give you a perspective to why he gave that apology, and then we'll hear whether the apology is enough or it's not. In fact, there are those who say, what has he said wrong anyway?
I have to admit that on hindsight, I did go over the board. An apology is in order because I was a bit extreme, but it was a very passionate delivery, and it wasn't in character of me at all. So if anybody in Parliament is listening, it wasn't intended to insult or maim anybody in Parliament, but it was passion and nothing else.
Okay, so that's Sidney Casey-Hayford. He's a financial analyst. You know him very vocal, particularly on Occupy Ghana. And this is what he said that, okay, I almost repeated his apology here, but he said that, quote, "These people are sitting there, spending money like crazy, making stupid decisions, and passing stupid laws. They don't read the papers that they are giving. They don't think through what the challenges are. The first thing I will do, if I had the opportunity, is to break down Parliament. We don't need it. Maybe if we break it down, we are wasting money. But maybe we can use it as a tourist attraction. We can say this is what we used to do in the past, so come for a tour, and then we should just poster it all so people can see." He said at a function where he was one of the speakers. You've heard the apology. He said he didn't intend it.
Yeah, but something I said, I've heard the apology, and I think, but I just think that it was, you see, if he had said members of Parliament or some members of Parliament, that would have been more comfortable. Because you see, the moment you mention Parliament, you're talking about Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Speaker and his deputies and Clerk of Parliament and the institution of Parliament, who invariably may not have anything to do, even if you look at the legislative process and the kind of things they do. Some people are powerless in that process. Even Mr. Speaker, by his very unique position, may disagree with some bill that will pass, but if the majority of members say that is the way we want to go, so will it be. So I think that's what I'm saying. We should be checked in these things. But look, something, we are also getting to a stage where I will be the first to say that Parliament should watch itself. It has a responsibility to protect its own dignity and integrity first and foremost. Because you see, we say respect is earned. But if you are hearing parliamentarians in the public doing where they have been, roaming on social media, lying clearly, and others are saying things, insulting others, I think that you now give people the opportunity to also run members down. And I think that it's not the way to go. I think the members of parliament should recognize that they are members of parliament first.
George, would you have said this when you were in the House?
Of course, I have. I've said it over
and over.
You were
in the House and people were hauled for contempt.
Yes, I am saying that.
We didn't hear you say
you didn't listen to me, Samson. When people were hauled before the House, I took the same position. And I always admonished members. That is why when things like bribery and corruption were flying, did you listen to me carefully? I did say that, look, you are doing yourself in by doing some of these things. It is important that, and you should have listened to me also on the visa issue. I was consistent. I am saying that, you see, as a member of parliament, first and foremost, you owe it a duty to yourself and to parliament to hold yourself with some level of dignity in the public domain. Okay? The extension of the word honorable to you even in the public space when it is not supposed to be so is because people think that in that institution you've acquired some dignity which you must uphold at all times. And indeed, in taking your oath of parliament, it's one of the things that you say. So I am saying that members of parliament themselves on daily basis, in what you say, in what you do, in how you say it, you must be mindful of the fact that people are looking at you, and if you don't take care, you may be judged the same way that you are judging others.
I see. Let's hear Emmanuel. Look, the Constitution is very clear in Article 122 when it says that any act or omission which obstructs or impedes Parliament in the performance of its functions, or which obstructs or impedes a member of or officer of Parliament in the discharge of his duties, or affronts the dignity of Parliament, or which tends either directly or indirectly to produce that result. That is what the Constitution says is contempt. The Member of Parliament for Kumbungu, Ras Mubarak, comes to say, this is what somebody has done. George is suggesting he must have done the wrong thing because this is needless.
Who said? I didn't say Ras Mubarak has done the wrong thing.
No. Because he's holding the individual.
I haven't said it's needless.
He's asking the Parliament to invite the man.
I'm saying that, I mean, within the rights of Ras, I haven't gone into Ras' rights to raise the issue, and I haven't even said that Parliament should not invite Sidney. I'm only saying that members of Parliament should also be careful in the things that they do, so that you don't invite some of these things, because somebody is only bold to tell you something, you are something else, because you probably are in the habit of saying it to others.
Interesting. Okay, so let's see.
I see where you're coming from, but you see, with this specific issue, and I want to be objective as I can, I think that, I mean, even granted that you find Kingsley coming out to render this apology, it sends a signal. Listen to what he's saying, you know, about his afterthoughts. And I think that we as citizens need to be very, very careful. We need to be extra careful. You see, if we want to continue to target the institutions of state and then run them down like he did with his pronouncements, I don't know what led or what discussion he found himself in that led to all the things he said. But when this issue came up,
you're speaking on the subject of a summit, which was the subject of the economics and the rise of Africa.
See, and you make such damning statements. I mean, to do with an institution of state.
He admits, he says, I went overboard.
I know, but we've had these things happen not only to Parliament. Our judiciary have not been spared. The executive, as for that one, is on a daily basis, irrespective of which government, I mean, which party is in government. And I think that if you hold yourself, you know, at that level in society, sometimes we need to be guided. How many times haven't we seen people hauled to Parliament because of pronouncements of this nature? What is it that when we find ourselves addressing people or speaking to issues, we can't control ourselves and we come out with this kind of a thing where afterwards we come out and say, I was carried away, you know, I mean, like he's putting out. For me, where we find ourselves, I think that this matter is a serious matter. And it is Parliament that will be able to deal with it and we'll see how it goes. If he's already started showing signs of remorse, I think that probably that would, you know, pave the way for him.
Mitigate.
Absolutely. Else, the kinds of things he said, for me, I do not subscribe to it.
Okay.
At all.
Now, look at it from this legal angle again. After you have read Article
122.
Article 122,
122,
or 123,
yeah.
it is also important that you may want to read Article 115.
115, yeah.
Okay, so that if a member of Parliament stood in that house
and said something
and said what Sidney had said about someone else, completely privileged, nothing will happen to him.
Yeah. Yes.
If he stood in the house and insulted you, ran you down, you can't sue him.
Yes, to a large extent. But you see, that is where then the issue of proportionality should be introduced. Because in my view, it is unreasonably improportionate for someone to have a right where he can then express himself as he may, even about your conduct, scurrilous imputations are made, and any form of description. But you don't have the right to sue that person. Of course, if you make similar statement about that person, he may even seek leave from Parliament and sue you.
Right.
Of course, that one you can also counterclaim against him, and your counterclaim will be a fresh suit against him as well. But I think the issue of contempt of Parliament keeps coming up, and I want to hold the view that to the extent that a person's conduct may directly or indirectly impugn the integrity of Parliament
Or produce that result.
is not in doubt. My issue is the powers that people appear to interpret from the Constitution that Parliament has to punish for contempt. That has been something that I have an issue with. Because, you see, in my view, the Constitution gives final judicial power to the judiciary alone. When the Constitution says that Parliament may punish a person for contempt of Parliament, and then still continues to say that where that same act constitutes a criminal act,
you can also
the Attorney General in this case can bring criminal proceedings against that person. So, and we know that person cannot be punished twice for the same offense.
Double jeopardy.
So in that case, I do not think that no matter the conduct or act of a person, Parliament, by reading and interpreting the Constitution as a whole, has the power to punish anyone for contempt. But I think the proper procedure will be Parliament referring, maybe passing a resolution which will bind the Attorney General to bring criminal proceedings against that person in the form of contempt. We are told that contempt is quasi-criminal, almost like criminal. I think it's just criminal. It's almost, or it is criminal. So in coming to this, I think that we should also adopt...
And what's the essence of that statement, that it is almost or quasi-criminal? It means the burden of proving it must
be on the person who has alleged that
and he must
have
prove
committed the
beyond
offense.
all reasonable doubt that you have done the act.
Yes, there should be enough evidence. And I think it's also proper that these matters are adjudicated on by persons who have been trained, judges, not just in the language of the law and acquisition of legal language, legal knowledge, but the temperament, disposition. You know that even in civil cases where a judge grants an injunction, don't do this or do this, and you violate it, the contempt suit or application will not go before that same judge. Because we know that as humans,
title.
Yes. So even with judges who are trained to acquire the necessary temperament and disposition to hear such cases, we still in practice would not take the contempt application before to that same judge whose orders you have violated.
The rules of natural justice.
Clearly.
A man ought not be condemned and hurt, number one, and you ought not be a judge in your own cause.
That is right. Without being
and you say this is what is happening in Parliament.
To be heard. I'm saying that by the nature of the provision, unless you want to interpret it holistically.
This is a very controversial crusade you have been on for a long while now. And as you speak, let me quickly get to Kweku, because Kweku is opening documents, including a book that a few of us have.
Let me wind up.
The interpretation issue a bit, but let Kweku come in.
Which together with Eskime may suggest differently what you're saying, that Parliament cannot, even though the law says it can punish, it cannot.
No, yes,
So it can.
my point is that if the punishment is not going to result in deprivation of the liberty of the person, then, I mean, Parliament can fine and all that. But even that, the decision of Parliament will not be final. I mean, the main situation, as has been explained, is in relation to the sovereign Parliament of the United Kingdom.
Correct.
Our Parliament is not sovereign. I sympathize with members of Parliament that sometimes they are the receiving end of such foul language. And I think that Mr. Casey-Hayford himself, given a second chance, will not. You see, one thing we shouldn't also forget is the language. You can say stupid, forgive me, in another country. Even a child can say that they don't be stupid.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
dare not say that here because it is quickly interpreted into the various vernacular and it's a very serious insult.
But if we are speaking English, we should be speaking English.
No, but I'm saying that our language is not delineated from
So what are we
the
speaking then?
original.
What are we speaking then?
I'm saying that.
If I'll say stupid in this same sense elsewhere,
No, language-
and it will not be seen as being scurrilous or insulting.
Language should be in the context of the cultural setting of a
Okay.
people.
Right.
That is why language is not just the words, spoken words, even the action. Elsewhere, or even in this country, gesticulations like this and all that can insult, be a serious insult. In other countries, people don't think that such things are insult. In Ghana, depending on how you use your fingers.
He says they don't read the papers before them.
Well,
Wait. Do we have evidence to back that what he's saying is true?
Well, let me
Do
tell
we
you.
or we do
I
not?
once heard a minister, or a member of parliament, in the previous government. He went to a radio station, and I think they passed one of the huge, either the Kaswa loan. He came in and asked them, where did you get this document? He said, oh, I saw it in my pigeonhole after the vote. They said, you people are lucky. If in your position you get document, I didn't get any, and yet I voted. This is somebody I heard. This week, I heard, I think, Honorable Muntaka complaining that they go to Parliament and there's no job to be done. Unless, I'm not glorifying what Casey said. I mean, it's condemnable, in all respect. But I think that when you read the statement as a whole, even though he's condemning Parliament and quote unquote like to break it, he still suggests that Parliament should be established in all the regions and districts. So maybe the overexuberance may have led him and the emotions. I know him to be one person who always champions for the local government system. So once at the same time he's calling for quote unquote a breakage or a removal of Parliament from maybe Accra or the national, he's still asking that he's proposing establishment of Parliament in all the regions and at the local level. But I hold the view that, well, to a large extent, this must not be issued to Parliament alone. Parliamentarians represent the rank and file.
Okay.
And therefore, I think he should, and I think his apology is not conclusive enough. It's not, he should issue an apology which is unconditional, having admitted that he erred. But I still also hold the view that I'm always happy that people come out with such statements, so we know what is in their mind.
Okay.
Look, if you all are
Thank
given
you.
opportunity to express our thoughts
Thank you.
about institutions.
Thank you.
You may be
Right.
cited for mental
Right,
contempt.
right. But there's those who say, look, this parliament has passed laws that he found out later that they were quote unquote useless and had to do something about it, or just couldn't implement.
They are human.
And so on and so forth. So I think George says that it's about the overgeneralization and looking at it as the institution rather than being specific and say maybe some or a couple don't do this. Well, because Justice VC RAC Crab just recently said some of them don't deserve to be in that house. How much more insult do you expect? Okay.
So Parliament doesn't have, you won't have a right of appeal if you were to be
Let's hear
convicted for
Kuku.
contempt.
We obviously can't put what the good old experienced jurists said, that's VCRAC Club, in the same context. We obviously can't do that.
Right.
Yes, there's no basis for that. Sidney is one of my heroes. in terms of contemporary civil society advocacy and activism, and I mentioned him during my lecture on the CDD platform. So I'm going through a certain dilemma. It only shows that none of us is infallible.
That's right.
None of us is perfect. So
You can be impartial without being neutral. So let's listen to you.
yeah, but he's wrong on this score. The language used, no doubt about that. I read Ras Mubarak was quoting him. He says, and I quote from the Hansard.
Exactly.
This is a draft.
He's stressing I quote from the Hansard. I stress that I was quoting from the report.
No, a draft Hansard is not the Hansard.
Okay, sorry. It's quoting from the draft Hansard. Shall we go on?
I'm the one who has indicated the nature
Of what you're doing, yes.
because I want to be fair to everybody.
Right.
So subject to certification.
Thank you. The day the Hansard comes out, and it will be by Monday, there's nothing here that would have been edited.
Okay.
That's my experience of parliamentary records.
A Hansard reading expert.
I'm a student of parliamentary history.
What do you say?
This is not the one. But please, that's not the issue.
Let's go.
That's not the issue.
George.
He says, these people are sitting there, spending money like crazy, making stupid decisions, and passing stupid laws. All they think of is, let's pass this thing quickly. Let's go to Senchi. Let's go and sit there and chill and come back, and that's the pattern. They don't read the papers that they are given. They don't think through what the challenges are. And the first thing I would do if I had opportunity is to break down Parliament. Put together, this is not a fair statement to make of the corporate entity called Parliament.
Right.
Look, they don't read the papers that they are given. They don't think through what the challenges are. This could be legit because we have experience of certain things that have happened in Parliament before.
They don't cooperate.
Well, I'm saying that when Parliament takes a decision and pass a resolution, it's corporate responsibility. It's collective responsibility. And we can give practical examples of decisions. All the 7 parliaments, or perhaps I'll exclude this for a while because really there isn't much time to examine the things they've done. And let's be honest, they may have passed some laws that some of us don't think are progressive enough. But they passed many good laws. Many good laws. Some of which emanated from civil society activism and advocacy. And have done much for our good governance practice. So this is a very sweeping, overgeneralized statement that is not good enough. And I found it yes, it doesn't mean I was a bad judge. But he's a good guy, very passionate, really loves this country, you know. But then I can see where he means by the passion, an overkill of passion. The last point. What I would do, the first thing I would do if I had opportunity is to break down Parliament. This is not a federal state. He was talking federalism or regionalism, clearly out of context. Okay? If you want to talk about the need to change the governance structure, the need to even amend the constitution for a drastic review of our governance structure, as an intellectual exercise, you can make that point. There are people who still believe in federalism. There are people who thought we lost the opportunity when we went for unitary Republican system in this country. I'm not one of those though. I prefer this system. I think it's been the best. But there are many of those who believe in federalism who have even abandoned it because they think that, look, this is what we have. Let's do something better with it. So again, even the prescription that he offered, look, can we have 10 regional parliaments? Who says that would be less expensive? Where is the empirical or more competent? Maybe that's the word. You see?
And how are they really going to function as to deal with, you know, bills that are about the state?
Thank you.
And so on.
Yes. So we're not a federal. So it's all wrong here. Let me be honest. From even the intellectual point of view, maybe it is his ideological beliefs and things, but it can be put in a way that can actually agitate minds for us to have an intellectual intercourse. and see the best way forward.
Right.
But in this context, it just shows like some rabid attempt to attack the institution of parliament. I feel so sad.
He's conceded and apologized.
I'm happy.
Should that be the end
Fantastic. Look, I've heard some MPs insisting it should be brought there. No, you see, it's difficult. You know, my own attitude towards contempt, that animal contempt, whether it's the judiciary or it's parliament. I have been cited for contempt of parliament before.
Right.
I was only lucky that particular parliament lapsed. So the new parliament didn't call me. I think Ebert Fubu was even also cited, if you recall. So
the speaker's boys and girls.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Ebert Fubu's case.
Yeah, that's right. Instinctively, I would suggest Parliament should ignore. But somebody will say, why the selectivity? Black Rasta was there. Was Professor Dodo not there? But I didn't hear Professor Adai.
Professor Adai was.
He was never invited.
And in our history, we've had example. Look, there looks,
he had actually dared them. Professor Adai had actually dared them.
but nobody, maybe no member of parliament raised it.
Yeah, in fact, I was one of those who had actually said that I didn't want him to be called because he had done it deliberately to incite parliament to call him to get fame.
Also because, as we got some information, he's got something up his sleeve that if you invited him, you will regret.
No. He just wanted popularity. And
okay, let's go
for
You denied him.
I denied him.
No, but I mean,
yes,
I hear what you say.
When I said
Through
no,
Parliament. I mean, George,
I was one of those
George,
who kicked
don't do this.
This is contempt of Professor.
I don't recollect any member of parliament raising the issue on the floor of the House. And once you don't trigger that, nothing really would happen. Okay, but we've a history of it. Apart from recent ones about Black Rasta, Professor Dodo, we go back to the 70s. The Nooks
graphic, yes, the graphic
yes, they were made to appear before the bar, you know, and so it does happen. You know, the question of, let me conclude, the question of members of parliament's own conduct, attracting breaches of privilege and things. Also, we have experience of that. And going to the Parliamentary Act, that is Act 300. Yes, there are sanctions. You can be suspended. You can, they can even deduct your allowances from your allowances. You can be expelled. Now, if you have privilege in the House, so you say anything. Usually, when you say it against somebody who is not in the House, the Speaker may call your attention to the fact that, hold on, or withdraw. If you refuse, yes, thank you.
I think Hackman had a situation, or is it? Sorry, not Hackman. Yeah. There was one recently.
But such things have happened. So, whilst you have privilege, and you can say anything you want to say, there are checks and balances. And when your attention is called to it and you refuse, you can be referred to the Committee of Privileges. The findings then will determine what action should be taken against you. So it's not an absolute indemnity of a sort or immunity that they do have. And we have examples. The great Sam Okujoto, who is now a member of the Council of State, he was actually asked to leave Parliament. He made allegations of corruption against the PP government. He stood his case, they fought it out, and at the end of the day, the Committee of Privileges said, you are guilty. They said, apologize. I have the Hansard here. He said he wouldn't apologize. So the Speaker asked the Marshal to walk him out of the House. These things have happened before. There are also examples where Parliament has not diligently, effectively handled some of the cases, the Bagbin case, the Pierre Ofori case. Though some of these cases were referred to the Committee of Privileges, and no serious findings came out. After Bagbin had made his allegation of corruption and all those things, eventually the Speaker referred the matter to the Committee of Privileges. They came back with a certain funny report. I have the answer here, where Bagbin did a review of what he has said publicly, that what he was talking about was lobbying and not bribery. And that it is like this NLE thing, you know, the way. And so the Speaker said, look, if that's the case, then let's do. So, you know,
they commence the process towards code of conduct.
This is it.
I thought that was the charge one you were holding.
No,
I saw it's taken up.
They have sanctions, even how they should behave and possible sanctions. Except that I don't know if it's been operationalized, but it is first edition 2016. You know. So yes, Parliament, I think we should really try.
we're taking a break, but before we do that, I wanted to ask this of you. I didn't want to ask George because he's been in Parliament and will still support them. He said the rules of natural justice, you know, do not allow that you call the person and punish them by yourself. But we have seen the examples at the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
And even with superior judges, where it is not a contempt as in ex facie curia, that is contempt that is committed outside of the view of the court, which somebody else must bring to the attention of the court. When you do it right there and then, for example, when you are being rowdy in the court, even reading a newspaper perhaps in front of the judge, or you are recording as a journalist when that is prohibited in the court, the judge can call you there and punish you for contempt right there. Yeah. So, Koku, where do we stand then? And you two don't like the MPs, you know, activating this animal called contempt?
Yes, to be honest with you, I really don't go for it. But you see, strangers, if you go into Parliament, you are not a member of Parliament. You are considered a stranger. And there are also regulations, rules for your behavior, conduct, and things. And if it amounts to contempt of Parliament, instantly, Parliament can expel you from the place.
Right.
Well, if you commit an offense that is criminal, for instance, assault, it's not Parliament's business, but they will give you to the police. There are policemen there, and they will then proceed beyond that. So if you are there disrupting proceedings, they have every right. It's within their powers to expel you. It's different if you are a member. That too, they have their processes. It's all here in the Parliamentary Act. So I don't think there's much of a problem as far as I'm concerned. And you were spot on. This is something I've been debating. The idea that Parliament should not investigate its own self in all cases that relate to it. I sometimes ask myself, why then do we allow the judiciary to do that? Why do they do that? In the wake of the announced expose, is the judiciary investigated itself?
That's right.
Oh, no, not exactly. Because
that's exactly what
no, the council is not constituted by the judiciary alone. The council, the committee, the committee is not constituted by judges alone. In fact, you non-lawyers,
the Chief Justice triggered the process.
The Chief Justice must make the pronouncement of prima facie.
Yes.
And then constitute the committee.
Yes.
And the committee is made up of at least 2 non-lawyers.
Is it a standard procedure?
That is what the Constitution. That's what the Constitution provides.
I'll concede to the extent of the composition, but you realize that the sanctions, everything, at the end of the day, is within the remit of the judiciary. Of course, the senior level then is the president, but it is the president acts based on the recommendations that are brought. So,
all right, but just before you just to make the point that as we sit, so that nobody is confused in their mind.
He's not been invited.
He has not been invited to the Privileges Committee.
Right.
It has been referred to the leadership of Parliament to look at the circumstances and consider whether they want to invite him.
Right. And we may need to critically consider this aspect about the Supreme Court inviting people and punishing them the way we have seen. When Atachia went to the court, you know, some of us supported him and were told, shut up. He said that is not a messy chamber, and so it shouldn't be happening like that. Okay, Musa Abato.
My draft is a genuine article.
Okay, thank you. Musa Abato and Kumasi says that our prayers go to Asante Kotoko FC and deepest condolences to the deceased family. However, the authorities should stop whining and do what's right. You don't sit aloof for accidents to happen before running helter-skelter looking for solutions. That's the attitude of the leaders. Ata Imoro in Wellensi says, traveling at night is really not a problem. The real problem is the many broken down vehicles on our roads. I support the compulsory towing policy, speedy recovery to all the injured team members. Kwesi Ejare Chum in London says, what happens if you refuse to honor the summons of contempt from Parliament? I think the Parliament is overreaching itself. They should put their own house in order, giving the levity and cavalier attitude they have to issues from within. Well, if you don't attend to the summons, you will be forced there. You'll be subpoenaed. Police will come pick you up. Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale says, fundamentally, I don't endorse insults or criticism of Parliament. Insults or criticism of Parliament. However, it seems Parliament is becoming too dictatorial against the comments of the citizenry who put them there. High-profile members in the society have been vilified by same members of Parliament. So where lies the legal maxim? He who goes to seeks equity must himself come with clean hands. Michael Amening in the UK says that Michael Amening has been sending messages to Newsfile since I got to know about Newsfile.
Really?
Says that comments made by Casey-Hayford against parliamentarians is in bad taste and condemnable, considering his caliber and the respect that he enjoys by a majority of Ghanaians because of his immense contributions to the progress of Ghana. And in some instances, the legislature should also have themselves to blame because most Ghanaians don't have confidence in the integrity and credibility of our parliamentarians because of the bribery scandals leveled against them. They should put their house in order. Emmanuel Kafui Venkuwini in Kintampo North says, I think my good friend George Low's position on Sidney's unsavory comments about our parliament and our MPs is strange. Is it that because he is no more an MP, he would side with such a reckless comment? He should come again. Okay, he says his position has been the same, constant. Diasporan U Kwame in UK, a new name, says that, I'm sorry, I am a diasporan too, but I believe most of you journalists have been unfair to Ahunkanlinse. Okay, we'll get there. Okay, let's take a break here. We'll be right back.